This episode of the BeanCast is brought to you by Asana, the revolutionary platform to manage all your projects more easily and effectively. For your free 30-day trial, visit asana.com/beancast today. Bandwidth provided by Recursive Squirrel Interactive. Transcription services provided by transcribeme.com. Episode 527, Blame American Pickers. For Monday, January 14th, 2019, it's time for this week's edition of the BeanCast, a weekly discussion about the news and issues facing marketers today. I'm your host, Bob Nork. Thanks for joining us. When a customer gets a package, it's traditionally been a key moment in building a brand experience. But in the brand-blind world of Amazon fulfillment, creating these moments has become a challenge. How are brands coping? Tonight we'll discuss. Also, creating more empathy in marketing, whether Reddit is a good alternative to the duopoly, why NBC is reducing ad load even further, plus this week's Ad Fail 5. That's the lineup. Let's meet tonight's panel. Thanks for joining us for this week's BeanCast. I'm Bob Norp, and with me on the panel for this evening, we start with the digital transformation lead at Campbell Soup, Mr. Samuel Monnie. Sam, what's going on?
Hey, Bob. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here. Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well. Now, next up, we have the Associate Vice President of Marketing Strategy at Arizona State University, Mr. Adam Pierno. Adam, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me. Great to be back.
And finally, we have the co-founder and lead analyst at TV Rev, Mr. Alan Wolk. Alan, what's going on, man?
Hey, Bob. It's great to be back again. Back on the BeanCast for 2019.
Yeah, you're one of the longest running guests. We've had you on for a number of years, haven't we?
Yes. Yeah, but it's always good, so I keep coming back.
Well, I'm going to jump right into the topics. And first up, there was this interesting story that I was reading, and it kind of brought to my attention a lot of things that I hadn't considered. First of all, creating a brand delivery moment for customers is a hallmark of good mail order businesses. We've known this for decades. It's something that a lot of businesses put a lot of effort into creating a moment when you open the package, you're getting a brand experience that is memorable and effective. But with the dominance of Amazon and the need to work within their storefront system, many manufacturers and retailers are intentionally obscured in the delivery moment, hamstrung by Amazon's partner mandates. Partner mandates which do things like prohibit brochures and advertisements and other types of brand experiences. But this reality has created a tremendous opportunity to re-envision the delivery moment across the board, as brands have struggled to, not only create a presence within the Amazon package, but also look at all their delivery moments across the spectrum. First, let's get some perspective, Sam. What is it about the delivery moment that makes it such a critical point in the customer journey? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think if you're taking just a step back about that experience and engaging with a proposition, be it a product or a service, and that aspect of opening it up, I guess we're often thinking about maybe something coming through the mail or something being shipped to you. But I think the packaging, the outer packaging, is a point of experience, be it on a shelf in the store or something you receive through a shipment or something that's in another box that is kind of being delivered by the mail. And I think that's always been there. So brands should have always thought about that moment and that experience from the get-go. And so, I just think about, I've got a set of headphones on, and I just think about brands like the Beats by Dr. Dre, and the art of unboxing has become more than just one or two categories. I just remember the packaging that my wife got for Coachella last year. and you could have made a 10-minute video for the little box it came in, the leaflet inside, and sort of the inside of the box and everything there. So I think brands have always used every moment to engage with their consumers, to engage with their shoppers. And I think what's different now is that because Amazon's such a big behemoth, people are concerned about what they can and can't do. But if you own everything that you can control, you don't have to worry about putting something in their box. You just need to make sure that everything that the consumer does after they open up the box and throw that away.
Yeah, undoubtedly.
Is awesome.
When you get a package and it's more if you've created an exciting experience, it does become memorable. It does become something that you want to share with other people. You mentioned unboxing. There's a whole genre of YouTube videos called unboxing videos, and it's become kind of a thing that we can use to market our products to even further wider audiences. But what I'm trying to get to is what is so critical about that moment? I mean, it's not just about the amplification. It's also about how the customer perceives your product, whether or not they want to engage with you, whether or not they want to actually buy from you again. And without trying to be too harsh on Amazon, because they're creating their own brand experience with their storefront fulfillment, it seems to me that, this is such a critical moment in the total customer life cycle that if you take it away from the brands, there's nothing left. I mean, it's just like all you're doing is getting a package from Amazon and there's no brand experience left for you to capitalize on.
But there sort of is, Bob. I mean, it's not like they're making Beats, take them out and stick them in a cellophane bag, and that's it. It's just they're saying you can't put a whole bunch of brochures and other crap in with it. But it's the same thing, more or less. You get in the store. There's still the same basic boxing experience. It's just that a bunch of marketing guys are bummed that they can't put their brochures in with it. I mean, everything still comes in the same general boxes. It's just in a larger Amazon box. And I don't think it's a problem. I think people get that Amazon is a store, not a company. Amazon also has a huge problem, which they're not really addressing too much, about fake Chinese goods, right? Where you don't know if the Beats that you bought are actually from Beats or from some counterfeiter in China.
Well, before we get into that, let's go back to that first point you made, which is that, every single package that you get is creating some kind of brand experience. And all they're trying to do is avoid throwing in the tchotchkes and the schlock and all the really, really bad marketing, the cheapest versions of marketing, the kind of like things like really gaudy coupons and really badly designed brochures. And I'm wondering, is that such a bad thing for Amazon to put these restrictions on the brands and force them to rethink how they're engaging with their customers and maybe come up with something a little bit more elegant that is not going to flag it in the Amazon rules section, but give it an opportunity, give that brand or that manufacturer or that retailer the opportunity to create an experience that's going to resonate with the consumer and get them coming back again and again. I mean, this sounds like more of an opportunity and a challenge than it sounds like a restriction that's killing brands. Am I right. Hearing you right?
Well, yeah, I think you're being a bit disingenuous. I think brands have always known this. As I think most marketers listening to this have known that was it first moment of truth, second, third moment of truth. So that idea, the second moment of truth before you even get to the product is this moment is pretty there. And I think the challenge has been for a lot of brands, have they been strong enough to warrant even doing anything remotely interesting in the experience? And I just remember, Jimmy John's, and they would put a sneaky little message at the bottom of their box, and so you turn it upside down, and all of a sudden it's you have a conversation starter because they've actually put a message there for the 10% of people who would actually look underneath the box. So I think brands which are quirky, smart, and engaging have thought about this, and brands which are very much design led have thought about this. So if you close your eyes right now, think how many boxes from products that you've bought do you actually keep? I don't keep my Toshiba boxes. Sorry, I don't keep any of my Dell boxes. But I've got in my office, I've got a couple of Apple boxes, and I don't know why I'm keeping them, but they're too beautiful to throw away. So I think the brands who actually do a great job. I think in fact Apple had some trademarks or patents for having a color litho on top of that white square box for an iPad. They actually protected that, but then they protected all the other elements in terms of how you lay out the different elements, the leaflet, the little white outer, how everything's intricately laid and placed in a sequence within within that environment was all thought through, and they have IP around it. So I think the super smart brands have always done a good job. And if Amazon implementing these rules is just stopping all the crap and all the clutter going into their outer box, that's a good thing. It's just like it's just like any mail that you open whenever I go through my mail, I throw out 80% of the stuff that comes through because it's a complete wastage. So they're saving cost. They're instituting standards by doing this. I think good marketers are always trying to be sneaky and getting around the retailer rules. But that's true of Amazon or any other retailer. So as marketers, you're always trying to circumvent the rules of your retailers, trying to find sneaky ways or doing things which are so awesome or so remarkable. I remember back in the day, and a slight deviation that I'm old enough to remember when David Beckham was a huge icon in sport, and we had cardboard cutouts of him in stores. And the biggest issue for the brand at the time, I was working on a Gillette brand, was the buyers were complaining because they couldn't keep the David Beckhams in the store because they kept walking, they kept disappearing. So if your biggest issue of your customer, your retailer, is that you got to replace the cardboard cutout of this kind of super icon, that's kind of moving the agenda. So I deviate a bit, but I think that whole experience, that whole brand experience has always been there. Great brands will do it, crappy brands won't. And I think with a lot of the DTC brands and the new challenger brands, they're using that as a moment to create wonder, create excitement, and use design and tactile experiences to engage consumers. And as I said, I think the Coachella one was a good one. I don't know, and I don't know about the other folks on the call, but I don't think this is unique to Amazon. I just think this is great marketers will do it well, bad marketers will suck.
Yeah, that's true. And Sam, I think it's all about context, right? It's about so many marketers, so many brands have been. It's not like we're surprised. Amazon didn't just change these rules, but nobody has really come forward and said, oh, if I'm always going to be in this box where I'm in a brown box surrounded by bubble wrap that looks just like this, maybe I should start developing packaging that really jumps out in some interesting way when you open it up and reveal what it is. But I haven't seen, and believe me, we get a lot of Amazon delivered to our house, and I haven't opened one yet where I said, oh yeah, these guys figured it out. It seems like they're still taking their same Walmart optimized shelf facer and putting it into the Amazon box. But the opportunity is rife to really own that moment where you'd open it up and get something really amazing that sticks with you so that your brand gets the credit and Amazon isn't getting all the credit.
My question about all this is, does it need to be in the package every single time? Like the delivery moment for me is not the package. I've always thrown away the brochures and the coupons, and there's almost nothing that captivates me in the package. What I'm mainly interested in is, what does the actual box of the item that I'm buying look like? How easy it is for me to open it and to experience it and to look at it and to feel good about my purchase. Those are the things I look for in a package. But in terms of the brand experience, it usually comes in the follow-up. Like the same day, I get an email that offers me another one of these items for 75% off or something extraordinary that makes me a loyal customer forever. Those types of moments enhance the delivery experience without actually being in the box. Is that more important for us to think about in terms of the customer life cycle and the strategy than actually trying to circumvent Amazon's rules about what we can actually put in the box?
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I'd say that a lot of what's sold on Amazon too, Bob, doesn't come from the brand itself. It's third-party sellers who can do what they want. I mean, just in pure terms of packaging, I mean, Jeff Bezos himself had put a big push for easy open packaging to get rid of, with a lot of electronic stuff, was in that really hard shell plastic that you needed to cut through. But brands that sell directly that have nice packaging, which are few and far between, generally keep it because to Samuel's point, there aren't that many of them. And and it is a sell for them, but the vast majority of stuff you buy from Amazon doesn't fall in that category.
Yeah, again, I think, Bob, you're hitting on just the overall experience. So we've focused on this kind of moment when I've got this physical item in my hand, but I could think of my experiences with brands like Nespresso. And what shocked me was I did get I bought the product, but then separately I received a package through the mail. It's almost like a membership club sort of package. But I also received 3 phone calls to check in the first week to check how my experience with the product was. And so what I clearly, they know that if I delight you in the first 14 days, you're going to be so connected to them. You're going to feel special. And all I spent was $200 or $300. I didn't spend thousands, but you know what? They understand the whole premise of the customer lifetime value. So they recognize you spend a little bit of money on me when I first buy. I'm going to sort of buy coffee from you for the next 4, 5, 7, 10 years. So delight me at the beginning, differentiate versus everyone else, and then you've got me for a lifetime. So, you know, I remember a former president of a company, one of the brands I worked on, and I was trying to talk to him about engaging consumers, and he was more of sort of a finance guy. And then but he had a Harley, and he then proceeded to tell me about how Harley, he got this membership kit, and he get these patches, and he'd sewn this patch on his shirt, and he showed me the shirt with the patch, and I'm thinking, wow, you're like on, you know, 6, 7-figure salary, you're super far in your career, you're a super senior person, and actually you would sew on the patch that Harley Davidson mailed to you, which probably cost 40 cents, and you'd put it on an item of clothing and wear it. So it's an idea of understanding your consumer so well, you really do understand that the belongingness to that brand and demonstrating that with pride could manifest in itself in something like a sew-on patch. So the experience is long, it's deep, and it's complex. And I think great brands have always thought about it. And I think a lot of the great brands we can think of actually have those elements, be it customer service, be it after sales service. You know, how do you solve something when something goes wrong? So service recovery is awesome. So the airlines that are always loved, like the Virgin Airlines and Southwest, seem to solve people's problems or be proactive throughout their experience, and often through people. And obviously you can think about Amazon, and you can think about Zappos and their kind of wonderful stories. So I think the customer experience is you know, broad and deep, and great marketing, great brands have that, be it through to the product that's shipped or through a multitude of other ways that they touch and engage with consumers on and offline.
And all those points are well taken. And I guess that leads me to the next question, which is, does any of this make anyone feel that Amazon's stringent code prohibiting inbox marketing makes a case for abandoning the platform? I mean, Amazon is such a critical and effective way to move product for so many of these companies. Yet if they're blocking your brand identity and they're not giving you the ability to have a connection with your customer, is this a case to look for other opportunities to sell your product, and maybe something that's going to give you more of a chance to express who you are as a company? Anyone take that bet? No one. So we all believe that Amazon is giving us a challenge that we can face and can effectively overcome.
Well, no, I mean, I think Apple's proven that building that kind of moat and fencing themselves in and not letting app developers express themselves outside of a certain code will definitely restrict their own growth. I mean, even Netflix, it took them how long before they had the revenue stream and the brand strength to finally pull back this month and say, hey, we're only going to give you half of the 30% cut that you've been demanding for this entire time. We finally achieved that. What other brand will ever get that big that they can make that kind of claim against them? So I think Amazon may be stealing this from their playbook.
Well, I'm going to move on. I'm going to talk next about empathetic marketing. It's something that we've talked a lot about on the show, about trying to anticipate what the customer needs, but this idea of empathy goes much deeper and broader. It's an interesting topic. We'll get to it in just a minute. But first, I want to tell you about a company called Asana. And I want to ask you a question, because this question is paramount when you're managing a project. I want to know specifically, how do you avoid the hassles of duplicated effort or not knowing what everyone has done so far? It seems like such a simple question, yet when you get involved in a deep, complex project, it becomes increasingly hard, especially in a big organization, to find out where everybody is on getting the job done. Now, Asana is a great tool that I started using when I was working with a startup called 16 Zeros. They introduced it to me. They said, we're going to use this for getting this website project done. And they started to give all their notes and all their tasks listed out to me in my Asana app. And let me tell you, this thing was the easiest thing to manage how I was getting my project done. So much so that I started to use it with my team, and I started to put together lists of tasks and assign tasks to people and manage them more effectively. It was so easy to use. It was so effective. I became a convert almost immediately. I mean, there are lots of tools out there that do this type of thing, but let me tell you, I'm not going to name names, but out of all the tools I've used in so many different organizations, I find Asana to be one of the easiest tools to manage a project with. It gives me the ability to create tasks easily, either using lists or by using a calendar. It lets me do the management. It lets me look in the back end and see who's done what, to get comments, to have conversations, to make sure that everybody's on task and everybody's getting exactly what they need. And most important for me, and I know this is not one of their big selling points, but for me, I think it's absolutely the killer thing. They have some great apps. I mean, they have apps for the iPhone. They have a native app for the iPad. They have apps for Android devices. These apps are really well put together. They're clean. They're easy to use. They're effective at managing the programs. I love it. And it's not just me who's excited about what Asana is doing, because companies like Overstock use them. Overstock is using it to manage all their partner relationships. And gosh, you got to imagine with a company the size of Overstock, if they're using it to manage all their partner relationships, that means it's got to be an effective, robust platform that's able to handle that many tasks. Companies like Tribeca Film Festival use it to manage all their events. Can you imagine all the complexities that are involved with managing all the different film showings that are going on in New York during the Tribeca Film Festival? Well, they trust Asana for this. More than 1 million organizations in 195 countries across the world use Asana. And they're reporting all kinds of great stats, like 45% more productivity, 82% saying that the team has increased clarity about what's going on. 80% of customers say it's giving the team more accountability. And 74% of customers say that it helps the team hit their deadlines, which of course is the killer stat that you have to pay attention to. So I want you to give your marketing team everything they need to work more productively and turn all your big ideas and marketing programs into results that grow business. Because I'm going to give you a chance to try Asana free for 30 days. There's no obligation. You just sign up, try it for free for 30 days. Get started right now at asana.com/BeanCast. That's Asana, ASANA.com/BeanCast. Asana, it's what I use, and I think you're going to love it as much as I love it. And we thank them very much for their support of the BeanCast. Well, we've often talked about the need to get back to basics in marketing and to create customer-centric strategies. That's kind of like marketing 101 whenever you're talking about getting back to the customer and being customer-centric in what you're doing. But now out of this mandate has come the idea that we need to be more than just customer-centric. We need to evolve to empathetic marketing that listens to what the customer is saying in real time and adjusts to the customer's unique situation. First, Adam, let's deal with the technical challenge, because all this sounds fantastic. You know, empathetic marketing, real time, responding to the customer with relevant actions that make you more loyal to what you're trying to offer as a brand. The challenge is it reasonable to expect an organization to be able to implement a system like this today that truly makes them empathetic, or is the best we're going to be able to do to just become more responsive? You know what I'm talking about, that difference between being truly empathetic and just being triggered to do a certain action in case a customer says or does something that triggers that action. So what's your take on that situation?
Yeah, I understand where you're going 100%. And, in my experience dealing with automation with huge enterprises, I don't think technically most organizations, save the top, maybe Google, maybe Amazon, may be able to figure this out. But um, the idea of moving from really, really responsive and highly contextually relevant into something that's truly empathetic. I'm not naive enough to say it's impossible. I think it is possible, but I don't think a brand really has the computing power to figure out the AI or what's necessary to really build in empathy into that model.
Shouldn't there be like we have ad tech out there? There's so many different startups that are claiming to do all kinds of miraculous things in terms of how to manage your customer's relationship. Shouldn't that be available off the shelf, or at least a custom solution that could be built for an organization? Or is the technology just not to that point, or is too prohibitively expensive for us to actually implement?
Well, empathy is a human trait. So it's the idea of making it something that a computing system can do, that can be done programmatically. That's the problem. I think the calls for empathy that you've been seeing are people that are saying, "Whoa, it's time to get back to having humans involved in the process." But technically, the idea of more context, better relevance, more aware of what people need at a given time. Nobody's going to say we don't like that, but the articles in this, the flavor of this call for empathy seemed to be a different flavor to me, which is almost background, whispering for, hey, we need more humanity in what we're doing, and that's not to say that we want to do less AI or less automated work. It's just, it's got to be done with humans flavoring it and giving it a sense of we really do understand you, and it's not just that we see that you're standing at a curb, so we're going to serve you an ad for a lift.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Sam, I heard you laughing. I heard you laughing about what
No, I was going to chirp
saying.
in. Yeah, and I think I've been to a lot of sort of these MarTech conferences and listened to a lot of the presenters, and there's often really, really smart people in the room talking about the technology. And the last presentation I gave was about why the human factor is so vital, because 80% of human decisions are subconscious or emotional or just gut feel. So the human condition forces us to drive empathy and to build that into whatever we do. And the machines are getting good. They're getting a lot better. And the technology now will say, look, if you're going to see a doctor, and it will sort of look at your skin, the camera and the AI will actually predict your any skin issues better than the human eye. So there's lots of spaces that the technology is actually better than humans, but empathy is a really hard, elevated, sophisticated ability. And so the good news for humans is that the machines aren't better than us yet. And as you sort of teed this up, I don't want this to just become a sort of performance marketing automation sort of led conversation. For me, the fundamentals of great marketing 101 is really the understanding of your consumer and really having deep insight that you can really understand people in terms of what they need, feel, and want and do, and then understanding the motivations as to why. The why, what are their beliefs, what are their aspirations and needs, and then what are the trade-offs and struggles they're trying to do to compensate to meet their needs. So, if this is a marketing 101, I would still argue the reason we need more empathetic marketing is because marketers, irrespective of the machines, aren't doing a good enough job. So marketers need to step up their game, and the machines may get ahead of us if we don't become better and if we don't do better things. And
Okay.
I think folks...
I'm going to stop you there, because it's just like, I agree with you that marketers can be lazy, and that marketers need to step up to the plate and deliver a little bit better execution throughout the marketing's the customer life cycle. But what I'm getting at here is that marketing technology, let's put it this way: if you have a situation where you need to be a little bit more empathetic, how can you scale up effectively to give opportunity for every single customer, especially at an enterprise level, the human touch that is being mandated here. It's like it's not scalable, and you need computers to manage it. And that's the problem I'm finding with this, and the skepticism that's being expressed by all this is the fact that a lot of there's a lot of MarTech out there, there's a lot of ad tech out there that's claiming that we can bring you the empathy that you need, but what they're really offering is responsiveness. And I'm wondering, are they selling us a bill of goods at this point when they're saying that you need to be more empathetic, or is it, just finding smart ways to interject empathy once in a while in a reasonable fashion without having to hire 100,000 people to manage the customer base?
But even that, I mean, there's two facets to what you just described, Bob, and I agree with a lot of what you said. On one side, it's, can computing do what humans do to offer empathy? And I'll let you guys in on a secret. I'm a human and I'm terrible at empathy, right? Like sometimes I'm just like, I don't get why you're upset or why you're mad at me. But the other side is, let's say we could scale it. Would it end up just looking like what happens when I call customer service and I get, passed from one person to another who doesn't care because, they're having a rough day or they're not giving me the empathy? Even when you scale it the right way with humans who are trained in it, it still doesn't work. So I don't have a lot of confidence that the current MarTech or the best stack in the world could deliver empathy. And I think you're right to question whether it's really just responsiveness. And I don't. It's not quite snake oil, because I think the sentiment is right. I want it to work. Sam, I agree with what you said. It's getting back to customer centricity and why does the customer feel the way they feel at this given time? 100% we want to solve those problems, but I just don't think it can be delivered.
Yeah, and I think it can. It's not either or. I guess what we can into a binary discussion, but the technology can help. So if listening to voice or looking at facial images, you can make predictions or judgments based on what's going to happen next, or obviously skin and skin temperature and all these things. So there are indicator signals and sensors that can give you sort of a holistic profile of what may or may not happen, or what is or isn't going on. And so I mean I'm probably not best qualified to talk about this, but I think that working with the technology and the people and combining that to get to a better option. But I do hear what you're saying, Bob. We're not there yet, and what's being sold is clearly not going to be utopia yet, because you need a human factor certainly for the foreseeable future to get it right and to deliver that moment. And I think, as you said, one of the folks said, talking about I suck at empathy. We all do, especially if you take it out of culture or context. Reading other people's emotions is really hard. So it's not that we're always right as humans, but I think technology can certainly help and assist and support, certainly, and also certainly from a marketing perspective.
Yeah, I think y'all are discounting the creepiness factor too. I mean, it sounds like an episode of Black Mirror, where the machine is gauging your mood and responding.
Yeah,
just factor that in.
Yeah. I mean, we know that the data shows that when it comes to things like certain decisions that could be made by computers or more accurately than human beings, like judges and judicial sentences, but that we cannot as a society currently accept that a machine's going to decide what my sentence is or how much the fine is versus a human being. But in terms of consistency and following consistency, technology will actually be more consistent, more reliable, and more disciplined than a human being, because we know that judges give worse sentences based on the fact that they are hungry. So I think just before lunchtime and just after lunchtime, when people are hungry, is actually when you get the harshest sentences. So there is a lot of evidence that shows that technology and the machines actually deliver better outcomes than humans. But often the challenge to all of this is that humans don't want to accept that the machine or the technology is actually going to be the arbiter or the final decider. We'd rather actually take the human as fallible as they are. And I think that's ultimately what is great about humanity, is that we'll take our failures, and the point just made in terms of it can get super creepy if we think that all judgments taken over by the technology, and algorithms unfortunately are programmed by human beings, and often biases creep in. And so part of the dark side and the problem is that human beings with biases, unconscious or conscious biases, can make a lot of mistakes. And so we're not there yet.
Well, what
No,
would
and I've
what,
always underestimated how willing even myself, who's pretty skeptical, Alan. I always think, oh, that's too creepy. No one's going to do that. And then 2 years later or less, I'm actually doing it. So I've always underestimated people's willingness, and I've always underestimated tech's ability to get there in terms of delivering on the promise of some of these things that you go, that it could never do that. And then all of a sudden, it's recommending shows that I like out of the blue. How could it work?
Well, Adam,
Yeah, I mean, it's like
let me tag on a follow-up question to you, Adam, on that front, because how would you guide an organization to this kind of transition? I mean, obviously on one side of the fence, there's people saying the very legitimate concern that Alan expressed, that this is kind of creepy, and to do this kind of responsiveness, this kind of empathy from a machine. However, on the other side of the equation, we constantly cross this line, and we find that customers are very accepting of this. I mean, I can tell you lots of stories about people who talk to chatbots all the time, who think that they're talking to real people.
Or people who prefer to talk to chatbots because it's less personal, and it's like it's going to do what I want, but it will judge me just a little bit less, or I'm not as worried about how the person on the other end. I want empathy from it, but I don't want to have to be empathetic about what I'm dealing with from them.
So how do you guide a company? How do you guide a company into this type of transition?
Well, there's two parts, and this has been a really good conversation, because on one side is the human side of it, where we have to get people to be more empathetic. We have to get people trained in that before we can even speak to the idea of how the technology is going to do it, and how we're going to layer in a level of empathy into our MarTech, if that can even be done. So I think part of it, step one, if you're guiding an organization into this kind of transition, is really preaching empathy as a core value, and getting the idea of getting customer centric and getting back to what does the customer need, or what are their wants and hopes and dreams. That's a beautiful dream, but day to day for most enterprises, you're just so far away from it. You're still just spinning widgets and trying to figure out how to sell product. So I think part one is getting people to really, really, really get taken back to what makes their customers choose them, what makes them happy, what problem you're solving for them as a primary concern. Then there's the whole technology and the bundle of facets that comes with, of how does empathy play out, and how are you delivering without the creep factor, to Alan's point, which is fair, and how do you deliver it in a way that's meaningful but not overstepping.
Yeah, really, really interesting conversation, and some really good thoughts on that. I got to move on to the next topic. We're running low on time. Reddit spent much of CES making the case for why their platform makes for a good alternative for ad buyers who are too entrenched within the duopoly of Google and Facebook. And advertisers apparently were impressed. This was maybe a little bit surprising to a lot of people. Sam, what's behind the allure here? Why are people looking at Reddit as a legitimate alternative to spending clients' money on, say, the Google, Facebook duopoly?
Well, I think the driver is you said the magic word of duopoly. So the challenge we're all facing in the industry is that there's a couple of big fish out there, and all roads point to them. And so opportunities outside and that can connect to audiences that you're after is going to be ever more interesting. Now you need some alternatives and some other choices out there. And I think from the Reddit perspective, it just seems like old-fashioned dollars and cents. It seems like a platform that is focused perhaps more on growing their community and versus monetizing it. And now they've brought in some new leaderships and new folks, and it seems as if they were stuck in a bit of a time warp, and now they're just professionalizing their business and their brand, and going to get their fair share of ad dollars. So I think I'd say good luck to them. And also, as a marketer, as a brand, you're always on the lookout for what's new, what's next, and what's better. So more competition and market, more choice is just a great marketplace value add. And I think from Reddit's perspective, I don't think it's rocket science. What's interesting, obviously, is they focus a lot on curated discussions and curated conversations. So I think from a brand perspective, it's an interesting territory. It feels richer and deeper and a bit more engaging than some other platforms which are full of nonsense. But Equally, there's a huge brand safety issue. So I mean, I'll be transparent. I'm not a Reddit user. I went on there for the first time today, and I was just poking around, and I think I got through the content I came across was some cat videos, some old people using technology, some girls smoking meth, and then the ads. I think the first 3 ads I saw was Lemonade, which is the insurance brand, Airtable, which is a tool for managing fantasy football or things like that, and then Fig Leaf, which is a private browser. So it's going to have the same issues as any other platform in terms of brand safety from a brand perspective. So I think they're going to monetize. They're going to become a bit more sophisticated, and they may be a wise option, but I don't see it as being particularly disruptive or a game changer versus other choices out there.
No, they have a really good PR person, Bob. That's it. I mean, they're not a real challenge. I mean, even the article, if you read into it, says experimental budget, and that's what they are. If you're looking to reach a certain type of younger, person under probably 35, Reddit's not a bad choice, but they're certainly not threatening the duopoly. The real threat to the duopoly is Amazon, and they know that, and everyone knows that. And Amazon's probably going to kick their ass in a couple of years. We with the TV industry always, they rely a lot on this extra data too. We always say, Facebook knows who we want to be. Amazon knows who we really are. Right? Facebook, a lot of what people do on Facebook is aspirational. Someone might like Starbucks because they think it's cool, but in reality, they only go in there 2 or 3 times a year. Amazon knows that person has a standing order for Maxwell House coffee. Amazon knows a ton of stuff about people, their shopping habits. Google knows what people are searching for, but they don't know if they actually went and bought it most of the time. Amazon knows exactly what people bought. And more than all of that, though, Amazon has every demographic. So the other options, the Snapchat, Reddit, even Instagram to a large degree, don't have that broad demographic that you get with Facebook and Google as well.
So what you're doing is you're essentially saying the only competitor to the duopoly is Amazon. And I think that's
right. Right, in January 2019, that's correct.
In January.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the numbers, because I did some research, and Amazon Media Group was projected to be a $4 billion business in 2018.
Oh yeah, we've been reporting the same statistics. It's pretty amazing how fast they've ramped up their ad business.
But they actually came in at 8 billion, around 8-10 billion. I think they're projected to be 18 billion in 2019. So they came from, look out for them, to they are now number 3. They're miles behind. They're like 10% of the big 2, but they've gone from nowhere to distant number 3. And they're, so the change in 2 years is ridiculous. And so you really have to reframe how you think about Amazon as a retailer. They're now a media company, and Prime is huge. So if you look at their business model now they're bringing in the ad dollars from search and all these things. They are a huge viable competitor, which has some implications. But yeah, the duopoly is being challenged. I don't think they're worried yet. They're not losing any sleep today, but if this rate of growth continues, this time next year, we're going to be having a very different conversation. So that's good in one way, but it's very disruptive. So a marketer listening to this, they have to rethink how they think about everything, because Amazon is number 3 and a serious number 3.
Right, and Amazon has another huge advantage in that their ads don't look like ads. I'm on the Amazon homepage and something pops up that says sponsored content, and it's very similar to those guys handing out cheese samples in the supermarket. You don't realize that they're actually put there by the cheeses of Switzerland, not by ShopRite. So people don't realize that things that show up from Amazon are actually ads.
Right. And it's just like they do a good job of notating that, just the same way that Google does a good job of noting that this is an ad. But I guess the experience of Amazon does make it a little bit more obscure, because you're in this process of buying. You're not in this process of searching. Right. I think that's a whole different attitude.
If there was an opportunity, I don't think Reddit could disrupt the duopoly, and Amazon is way out in front. The opportunity, as I see it, and based on the logic, Alan, that you just laid out, which I agree with, all those things are getting closer and closer to transaction. or to mentions or God's sentiment, which is the worst measure of anything. But when you talk about Reddit, you get deeper contextual conversations about things. And if a brand is intelligent about the way that it interacts with people, not in Wendy's on Twitter roasting people and moon pies being snarky, but Reddit gives people the opportunity. Redditors, people using that platform, are more tolerant and take a little bit more context with things. They'll actually comb a thread and read things before they blow it up or just shit all over it. So I think you have to look at that as the potential opportunity for Reddit as a way to build more of a brand story, which is the counter to the highly, highly transactional side of Amazon, which is a huge advantage for them.
No, I agree. If you're a brand like Lemonade, what you said you saw as an insurance company aimed at sort of a younger, hipper audience, it's a brilliant place to run. It's a brilliant place to run the ads.
Yeah,
as long as you're not near the meth, the person.
Well, I mean, I'm telling you what I saw that way. If you're the brand there, you got to. So you got to deal with everything what's on. You obviously can't police what's on Google and other platforms. But you're right. I think that for me, you talked about brands and immersing in consumers' lives and being authentic and all these jazzy things and people say, I don't want a brand that's more authentic. Get out of it. But actually, if you can do that, and I think certain categories, certain brands. I think people like Spotify or musicians, certain categories, healthcare, perhaps practitioners, certain categories and brands actually could use this for forces of good, for forces of differentiation, and actually do great things. But I think now it's kind of a reboot for Reddit, and let's see what happens in the next sort of 12, 18 months and see if there are any case studies that get people excited. But I agree. I think there is a richness, but I don't know how many marketers it's going to float to the top of their priority list, or how many brands it's going to float to the top of their priority list versus as we talked a bit before about some of these other behemoths, which you've kind of got to do an awesome job at to be successful and drive your business.
Yeah. Well, we got to move on to our last topic. We're running out of time, as I mentioned. Finally, NBC announced their intention to reduce ad load even further than they already have. Alan, you're the TV guy. What's the story behind this move, and will it help them in the long term?
Well, I'll give you two contradictory answers. It's a very smart move on their part, but it's probably not enough. So it's a very smart move on their part because they understand the basic law of economic is when supply goes down and demand remains constant, prices go up. So their goal is to try and reduce their ad load while recouping the same amount of revenue, and that's something that they can do. Now, the reason I say it's probably not enough, it's because you've got 16 minutes on average of ad time every hour, right? The average TV show is 22 minutes of show, 8 minutes of commercial. If you reduce that by 10%, that's 1.6 minutes. So they've done that twice. So it's 3.2. So you've taken it from 16 minutes to 13 minutes. Still a lot of commercial time. And they are up against a really fast growing subset. We've been calling it the FAST, the free ad supported streaming TV services. Amazon just launched one with IMDb, the Roku channel, Tubi TV. These guys have been growing. There's no actual stats on it, but Beachfront, which is a company we work with, has seen a 1,640% increase in ad avails from those year over year, which is, Beachfront's business has been growing, but nonetheless, I mean, that's a huge number. And those guys have about somewhere between 6 and 8. They've got about half of the ad load that NBC will continue to have. Now, NBC has a little time. So cord cutting, despite what Silicon Valley trade press would like you to believe, is not really happening. It's been happening at about 1% every year. Most of those people are still going to the virtual MVPD services, the Sling, the DirecTV, and they're watching the same stuff and paying the same companies. It's just a different delivery system. The way satellite is different than cable. They're not skinny bundles anymore. They're all, 80 plus channels at $45 a month, whatnot. But this year, there's a huge change coming down in the TV industry. Warner through HBO, Disney, and Apple are all launching their own Flix, right? Their own Flix service. So we'll have 6 giant OTT services. And at that point, we might see a bigger increase in cord cutting. Again, not huge. Maybe it'll go to 7% from 1%, but that's a pretty sizable number. So NBC knows that they have to do something. They know that people don't want to watch these interruptive ads, and that the ad load, especially if you're coming from Netflix or even if you're coming from one of these fasts, starts to seem oppressive, and that you can watch, a lot of the same stuff.
Well, can I
with
interrupt
far
you
fewer
with
commercials.
can I
Yeah.
interrupt with a question on that? Because
Of course, I've been rambling. Go.
well, but so customers, so viewers, they don't want to watch these shows with ads. That's the preference, and yet there is no opportunity to watch these shows without advertising, especially if you want to catch up on the latest season. If you want to catch up on archive seasons, yeah, you can. There's options for you. You can go to your Netflix, or you can go to one of the other streaming services that is caching these episodes, and you can watch them commercial free if you pay a little money. But if you want to catch the latest episode of The Voice, there is only one way to do that. It's either, there's two ways to do that. You can go and watch it on the broadcast channel, or you can go and you can watch it on Hulu, maybe a day later. You're going to get ads. So is this such a bad thing for them to be in this? Like, you're saying it's not enough, but if they've got good content and they've got people coming along, and what they're really doing is saying our customers, our viewers don't want to watch as many ads, but we need to make the same amount of money. This is a solution. It sounds like a good deal to me. Are you still skeptical of it?
Only in the fact that they need to keep making shows that people will put up with that many commercials to watch. And as the industry is spending something like $15 billion, right, between Netflix and Warner Flix and Disney Flix and Apple Flix to produce new programming. So that sets up a really high bar of NBC to say, okay, the assumption is that Disney Flix and Warner Flix will have the Hulu-like system where you can pay a couple dollars more and get it ad-free, and then there'll be some ad-supported. Live will probably be, some of the live stuff is obviously always going to sort of be ad-supported. But point being, they need to have stuff that people are going to be willing to put up with that many commercials to watch. It's going to be that much better. And with so much out there, that's not going to be easy.
I was looking into this because I'm coming from somewhat of the industry side, but also just as a consumer side. And I was poking around for some data, and some of the data I'm seeing is actually the ad loads are rising. And so the numbers I saw, some Nielsen data and an Axios article, but they were actually going up. So it seems like there's a great intent, there's a great mission that a lot of these sort of networks are trying to do, but actually the reality is the ad minutes per hour are going up. And so from the solving the problem, I think you're right, there's more that needs to be done, but we're not even sure that the actual it's going down in the first place. So
I blame American Pickers for that. I totally blame shows like American Pickers for that, because you got like a huge content library and you can endlessly run reruns, and people will tune into the History Channel and watch their American Pickers episodes, and they're willing to accept 20% more commercials every single hour to see their American Pickers show. So what I'm saying that the broadcast networks that are doing the quote unquote A+ content, the content that, attracts the biggest audiences, those are the networks that have to worry about ad load. But the rest of the networks, you can pump as many ads as you want and you're still going to get that American Pickers fan to show up and watch the episode. And I think that's the story there in terms of the rising ad load. Well, it's a fascinating story. I wish we could talk more about it, but it's time for the Ad Fail 5. Before we get to that segment of the show, though, I do want to take this quick opportunity to thank my guests again and allow them to each do a shameless plug, starting with Sam Monnie. You can find him at campbells.com. What's going on, Sam? What would you like to promote?
You know what? Starting in the year with some new habits, and I think for me, I'm reading more books. And so the current book I'm going to plug is by a 70-year-old management consultant guy, Tom Peters, and it's called The Excellence Dividend. And it's all about how people matter in order to sort of save yourself from AI and technology taking over. Focus on excellence, focus on people, focus on developing yourself, and that's a way to win before the machines take over. So Tom Peters' book, The Excellence Dividend, it's worth a read.
Well, great recommendation. We'll have to check that out. Next up, Adam Pierno. You can find him at asu.edu. That's the home of Arizona State University, where he is in marketing strategy and AVP of marketing strategy. Tell us what's going on in your world, Adam. What would you like to promote?
Oh God! Well, the aforementioned Amazon is the host of my current book, Underthink It, which is a marketing strategy book that does deal a little bit in empathy. And hopefully, in the next 2 months, my new book, Specific, will be out, also available on Amazon once it's finally released.
Congratulations! That's awesome. So, yeah,
Thank you very much.
definitely check out Adam's page on Amazon. Leave him a nice, good review. Last but not least, we have Alan Wolk. You can find him at tvrev.com. That's the home of TV Rev, an awesome, absolutely stellar television consultancy, doing some amazing work. Alan, I know you've written a book. You've done all kinds of things. What would you like to promote?
Okay, well, I'm going to promote. Which we think we're going to actually turn into a second book, but we are releasing a large report on ad-supported OTT at the end of this month. It's written by myself and Mike Shields, who's joined us. Mike used to work for publications like Adweek and the Wall Street Journal and Business Insider. It's really sort of a whole guide of how to buy advertising on OTT, which is something that, as we did the report, we realized was incredibly confusing to everybody in the business. That it is a very complex thing, and nobody really understood it quite well, especially people who came from the TV side, because it's all sort of digitally. So it's sort of a soup to nuts compendium on that, and it wound up being long enough that we think we're going to release it as a book eventually, but it will be available via tvrev.com, so keep an eye out for that.
That sounds.
And my book is my book is called Over the Top: How the Internet is Slowly but Surely Changing the Television Industry, and that is available on Amazon.
And it's gotten great reviews. It's one of the best books on the television industry, so you definitely need to read that. As for me, for more information about me or the show, visit thebeancast.com. There you can find a complete show archive. You can find out how to consult with me, and you can even find out how to advertise on this program. So check it out at thebeancast.com. And now it's time for the Ad Fail 5, a rundown of the lowest moments in advertising, marketing, and public relations from the last week. And first up, CES, the trade expo that brought us booth babes, sex robots, and an all-male speaker lineup last year. Can you read between the lines? Sexist. This year awarded an innovation award to a female sex toy, then rescinded the award. I love this. Sam, this is great. They rescinded the award because the product didn't fit the character of the show. I mean, come on. Basically, because it's something that a woman would use, it's absolutely not acceptable. But when it comes to men screwing life-size robots, it's completely acceptable.
Yeah, this is based on the fact that the category had been awarded in the past and they can participate in the show. It seems completely unfair. And I think the negative publicity that the organization's receiving is warranted.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, next up in more sex toy news, the MTA in New York, Alan, which routinely runs ads for breast enlargement and the Museum of Sex, rejected ads from vibrator maker Dame because the ads violated their quote-unquote standards. Now, I saw these ads. You know, you got to really know your sex toys to understand that these were ads for sex toys.
Yeah, I was just surprised to learn that the New York City MTA had standards. So
Oh, that's harsh. That's harsh. No, but listen, I did want to make a serious point on this topic because the way the story is being told, it doesn't look good for the MTA, right? And the brand's getting a lot of publicity. But I think this is symptomatic of the bigger issue. I mean, the prior ad fail is a classic example. 2019, it really is questioning who gets to decide in terms of gender equity and female empowerment. And, you know, if brands like Hims and Roman can do stuff and advertise with innuendo, why are people policing what can or can't be done from a women's health or a sexual health from a women's perspective? So this is kind of more of a subtext of what's going on in culture and in society, and the rules will have to change to be fair and reasonable and to empower the female voice and the female perspective. So I think, yeah, they may, you know, people may be sniggering, but actually the subtext of this is pretty powerful, and I'm glad that change is coming because people are literally you know, raising their voices and challenging decisions which aren't fair or reasonable.
Well said, my friend. Now, next up, Promobot, a Russian robotics company, is claiming that one of their robots, Adam, was the victim of a hit and run by a self-driving Tesla. You know, I read this article and they weren't sure whether it was a serious faux pas or whether or not the thing was a whole PR stunt, but I'm betting on this is probably one of the most confusing PR stunts of CES this year. What's your take on this?
You know, as somebody who's always thinking about ways that they can get attention for their clients, for their brands, for their partners, I guess now we're praying to get hit by self-driving cars is the best media mechanism we can find. I think Promobot might be in some trouble.
Well, yeah, why even take on Tesla? I mean, make Tesla the bad guy in this situation. That doesn't make any sense. I'm not really sure where this whole story was going.
Well,
so many questions.
I think they were just trying to get Elon Musk to involved, to tweet a couple of things, to try and sue them, and then they'd have gravy. But I don't think even he sort of responded. So it kind of went nowhere, and it was just a lame PR stunt. But actually, I checked. It's got over 1 million views, so someone's watching it.
Yeah, someone's watching it, but nobody's understanding it, and that's the big story here. Next up, Google is being sued over claims that it routinely covered up sexual harassment, Alan. Sexual harassment allegations against many of their top executives. You know, the more this ball of wax starts, the ball of string, onion, whatever, the deeper we go into this thing, the more we find out that things are not always as clean and non-evil as we think they are at Google.
Right? Hasn't that been reverberating where their staff has been sort of protesting and about it, because there's been a bunch of stuff going on there for a while now that, you know, just getting bad press about internal policies.
And speaking about bad press, days before her 60th birthday, Adam, donor creative director Susan Walsh was called into an office and laid off for lacking quote-unquote anticipated skills, which is code word for you're too old, lady, and we're getting rid of you. Obviously, there is now a lawsuit. These situations are always hard when you have somebody who doesn't have the skills that you need to continue to effectively do business. But you've got to give an employee every opportunity to succeed, and it doesn't look like they did that in this particular case. It was a ham-fisted handling of this situation.
It's appalling that the worst thing about being part of the ad industry is how bad we trip over ourselves to make one thing look worse than the next. I'm laughing, even though it's not funny, but it's these people at Donor couldn't have predicted the outcome. There's just so many things you could go back. I don't know how long Miss Walsh worked there, but hey, you had all this time to be training, to be helping, to be teaching. To do something so clumsy.
Yeah, change your job description, give her 6 to 12 months to effectively change her skills and then decide. I mean, the whole we don't anticipate you ever being able to learn a new trick, old dog, is not exactly the answer I would have expected.
Yeah, and Donor doesn't exactly have the reputation of people that are able to predict the future of the industry. Geez, give me a break.
Yeah. Well, have something to add to this list or just want to discuss it? Comment online. Use the hashtag AdFail5. That's pound, AdFail, and the number 5. Well, that does it for this week's show. If you'd like to subscribe to this podcast, visit our website at thebeancast.com and click on the subscribe link. If you're an Apple Podcast listener, we've also provided a direct link to our listing there. Or just search for the BeanCast in the podcast directory on the Apple Podcasts app. And whichever podcast directory you use, when you subscribe, please leave us a review. Got a comment? Have a question? We'd love to hear from you. Just send your emails to beancast@gmail.com. Opening theme was performed by Joe Seibel. Closing theme by C. Jax. Thanks for listening. I'm Bob Norp. We'll be back again next week. Hope you'll join us then.
You know what I mean? It's like if it's, you know what I mean? I don't know, man. Just like, okay, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like totally like that. It's like, I don't know, like if it's, you know, it's like, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's just like kind of, it just seems like it's just like almost exactly. It's like exactly. Yeah. You know what I mean? Exactly.
Cool beans.